Okay. Welcome to the January 4th, 2023 APCHA Board regular meeting. We'll call the meeting to order, and Cindy, please take the roll.
Okay. Carson?
Here.
Rachel?
Here.
Skippy?
Present.
Kelly?
I don't think Kelly can hear us.
Kelly, can you hear us? So none of them can hear us.
Nope.
Recording in progress.
Kelly, you can't hear us.
Tom, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay.
What about now?
So you need to unmute something or turn something down.
You can hear me now?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me now? No.
Can't hear you now.
Yeah, see,
You need to unmute it back or.
What about
unmute
your-
it
is
again.
your speaker
it's
on?
only, yeah, the speaker's only working, so it's only
Still
working.
can't hear the room.
You can't hear us, huh?
I'm on. Tom, can you hear me?
Okay, we can hear Tom.
We can hear you, Tom. Can
Kelly,
you
it's
hear
only
us?
working if I talk through my computer. We're trying to troubleshoot it right now.
So something has.
Okay, there's often a button on the big main screen there that you have to push. It's up between Cindy and Maddie.
Is this, it says it's muted, that who needs it?
We
No,
can't get
on
into
the
Elmo.
screen between Cindy and Maddie, there's like controls.
Oh, that control screen, there's something.
Yeah, this, and we can't, we're not connected. We're trying to get a hold of IT. Maddie said, "Don't touch this."
Elmo. That's really bad Elmo voice, I tried.
I don't know. It says, please connect your laptop to the input jack, and I don't have a clue, because we've never done that before.
Well, is there,
I can talk through my computer, but
Well, I'm just wondering, the only issue is the echo, so I wonder if you turn that on and that speaker turns off, if that will work, or if we can't hear them then.
yeah, we probably can't hear them.
Welcome back to Parks and Rec, season
Yeah.
5.
Yeah. That's the power cord, so you don't need to hook something in here from one of these guys or anything, do you?
I don't
Please
know.
connect your laptop to the input jack station if you want to enable audio. Connect the headphone jack as well.
Recording stopped.
PC,
We just leave it that way. And then I go up and down and find. Sorry, really sorry. It's.
I don't think we've met yet.
Um,
Yeah, sorry, I've been missing your call. She's calling me on the way to Pueblo and.
Unusual. Amy can help, but we have a different Amy.
well, what do we want to do for this? Because we can't really have a meeting if Francie and Kelly can't hear
No,
us.
without this fix, we can't have a meeting, but hopefully we can fix it. I'm happy to jump up and give it a shot if we want. I don't want 50 bucks in case I don't think that's helpful.
Some route the right way. My computer and the Pitkin County computer seem to be echoing. Carson says
All right, so we're getting some troubleshooting going on. We'll just stand by while we work through this.
No, I mean, they told me a new transmission, they couldn't even find them used, and it would be about $7,800.
my computer, AKA Cindy, is muted. My physical computer in the lower right-hand corner is muted.
Part of the tune-up was from shocks, replacement main battery, or hybrid, but I don't think.
It is. Oh, not the Zoom, the regular computer needs to be muted. Okay, hold on here. Every time I get to it. Trying to find
What?
it
You
on
said
here.
7,800 or 7 to 800?
7,800.
Get out of it. That's
For what?
A new transmission. for my
no.
Honda.
That's
Yes, forget about it.
no way.
Okay,
That's a new
County
engine.
computer is-
You could
is
buy a new engine
muted.
and a new transmission
Carson,
for
do you wanna,
$7,800.
try,
Not anymore, I guess.
get back into Zoom?
Maybe
unmute
not at a
yours-
dealer here, but I feel
Well, I
like
mean,
there's
I
gotta
can
be a
talk,
second
but I'm
option.
talking through this speaker.
Turn your volume down, but turn, you're muted right
It's
now.
a
Can you get
CVT
back?
and they're limited. Got it.
But that's why I like the part.
Sure. I can talk through
I've got some
this
going
computer,
shows.
but
I'm
I
just
should be able to talk through this microphone.
Right before the
Sure.
It's like a lower right-hand corner.
Do they, so as a car enthusiast,
There it goes.
I'm on all those annoying like performance forums, or at least I am when I have a car that does that.
Yeah.
I would think that they might have those for like eco cars, and that might be a good place. Do they?
You mean to part them out?
Yeah.
I don't know, I've seen a number of people advertise how give them your VIN number.
Oh, I
see. They do it for
card,
you.
and
Carter.
they'll wait, and they'd have to give you an estimate, so.
Carson, sorry,
400 or
Carson, I
500,
just
guess
asked you
what?
to unmute.
Got it.
And then they make the money parting it out.
Right.
You need to let.
It is a lot of
Bethany in
work, and they
too.
gotta disassemble things.
They have
And,
to have a place.
yeah.
Yes, I mean, so I'm unmuted, but
I'm not seeing Bethany now.
So you have to get a new car now?
Or a used car or something.
I'm
Yeah.
not
Well,
seeing
I didn't
Bethany.
mean, I meant
She's in the
muting.
waiting
Different
room.
car.
Yeah, different car, yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Paul's has his father's car,
Where
which
is
is
my
an
waiting
old
room?
Camry with a 200.
Well, I would think that you do have to
You-
pull up the participants, and that's,
If you can drive stick, you're welcome to borrow mine anytime. I use
Kelly,
it.
I can hear you, but
I figured you could.
But no, I've got.
basically the only way you can hear
I
us
try to
is
use it as
if
little as
I'm,
possible.
you're through the
Unless
little
you find
microphone
website.
on my computer, which
I can't see any.
I don't think that's a very pleasant meeting experience for you.
you can't click on participants now?
It's not doing anything.
Oh, we just won't be able to hear Cindy and.
No, I'm seeing my participants, but she's not there, I guess.
We've got
She
we've got
logged
tech
on.
support on the phone right now.
She's in the
so-
waiting room.
Cindy says she's in the waiting room, and I can't see Bethany.
Bethany's.
There she is, okay, admit, she's in. Okay, so, nobody's echoing,
You just
so
can't
when I
see
hit
anybody on
recording,
that.
if nobody's echoing, we're good? I think we're
Recording
good.
in progress.
Can they hear us?
Kelly, can you hear us?
Kelly,
Francie,
can you hear us?
Tom, can anyone hear us?
They're all muted again.
No, but I can see them. They can't hear
Can't
us.
hear us. Until you unmute the room, I can't imagine they're gonna be able to hear us.
I think you need to unmute right here.
Yeah. All right.
Kelly, can you hear us now?
Yes.
Tom, can you hear us?
I'll hear everybody.
So turn off yours and see if that still works. All right.
Hold on.
Nope.
There we go.
All right. Can you guys still hear us? Yes.
Wow.
All right. We got it. Should I go run and find Rachel? She went to
Okay.
find a tech person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'll go get her.
Thanks, Skippy.
All right.
Elaine tried to
Well,
find
thank you
somebody,
for
nobody's up
the
there.
patience here. All right, so Rachel's just coming back into the room here. So we'll open up for public comment. Is there anyone with public comment? There's no one in the room. Doesn't appear to be anyone online.
For future reference, that's Michaela's phone number in case.
So we will close the public comment and we will move to Board of Director comments. Kelly, we'll start with you. Okay, now we can't hear Kelly.
Oh no.
Kelly, are you trying?
I've asked her to unmute.
She's
She's
unmuted.
unmuted.
That's our speaker. You have volume.
So Kelly, you can't. Can you hear us, Kelly?
Yeah, she can hear
She can
us,
hear us.
but we can't hear her.
Yeah,
This is ridiculous.
blink once for yes, 2 times for no.
How's your Morse code?
Honestly.
I'm seeing my pin. Cindy, I'm sorry, I'm not seeing the pinning.
Is your just
You may want to call
Okay, come
Michaela,
back.
she's the one who's supposed to be on call
Yeah, that.
for the county right now.
It's not
That's
there.
what-
Yeah.
do you just have a speaker on your laptop that you could turn the volume up
iPad.
on?
You gotta add pin that.
Okay, go ahead, Kelly.
Yeah, that's not the issue. We just
Nope.
sent him a speaker.
Normally it comes out of these things or out of.
I'm just wondering if those speakers are muted on her device. Because they were on
No,
before.
She was just saying that it's been a lot of people have been fooling with the
Oh,
system.
really?
And she doesn't even want to touch it, the gal out there. She said, I don't even know how to work it anymore.
She was just saying a lot of people have been fooling with the system and there's been some gremlins in the code and this is an ongoing issue we're trying to resolve. Gremlins is a technical term for
I'm not
anyone
sure.
out there.
I don't think we can. I mean, I don't think we can proceed if we can't figure out the technology because there's no way
Yeah,
for
I agree with
for
you.
us to hear Kelly and Francie and Tom.
Or the other citizens.
What happens if you turn your volume on your computer while she's speaking?
It just echoes
It'll
like
echo.
crazy.
Okay.
Yeah, and Michaela did not answer.
Okay. I hate to suggest it, but I'm not sure we really can continue with this meeting, and I don't know if we shouldn't look to reschedule or see if we can make the meeting of the 18th a longer meeting.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
unfortunately, I think due to technology, I think we're gonna have to.
Hi, we cannot hear Kelly. My Pitkin County computer is.
Hold on, we're on the phone real quick. Let's see if we can get this.
I was gonna say,
figured
do
out.
we think that what's her name, Michaela, would call back, or no idea?
We haven't tried to hear anyone else. But I pinned her, so she's
No,
big.
Tom, we don't hear Tom, we don't
We
hear
don't hear Tom.
anybody who's on
The people
Zoom.
who are yeah, got it. Okay, thanks. Bye. It's a GrassRoots issue. If we can't hear these people. Because Tom's unmuted, Kelly's unmuted, Francis is unmuted.
I just wonder why we could hear them before.
Yeah, we could hear them before, and then now,
But then they couldn't hear us.
but then
Right.
they couldn't hear us.
You know, and if this is about broadcast for transparency,
Yeah,
for
right, yeah.
communication with the public, and
Agreed.
the equipment's not working, we're just not gonna be able to do this.
Okay.
And I went to see if any of the management was here at the county, and John's not here, Phyllis isn't here, Rich isn't here, the people who
Okay.
might know how to work it separately from IT department.
Should we give the woman 15 minutes and see if she calls back?
Right.
Unless that's her.
We're probably gonna cancel the meeting.
That's probably not her.
Yes, we're probably gonna cancel the meeting. I know.
I guess the question is just, do we want to wait any period of time to see if we can salvage it, or just call it?
We can wait a little bit.
Yeah, let's give it 5 minutes, and if we don't have it figured out here in the next 5 minutes, say 4:20, we'll cancel the meeting.
Don't worry about it, I'll mute that. It's not an issue.
I turned mine off just so these guys could sort it out, all the extra mics.
I'll live right here.
Yeah.
You never do.
Yes. And PC mute is turned off, so it's
That's
on.
true.
So Tom said he could hear all of us.
Right.
Right,
He could hear Kelly,
Like, where do I?
but we could not hear them.
right.
We said join in the beginning when we joined Zoom.
When I was first talking, when I talked through my computer, I could hear myself playing here, and then that got muted.
The Pitkin County computer is muted. Okay.
Rachel did, no dice.
What?
Oh,
There we go. Kelly, can you?
Yeah, I can't. mute
Kelly,
the
it said
Pitkin
someone should go
County.
upstairs.
There we go.
We got
There
it.
we go.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Got it.
I can't.
Can you hear me now?
I
Yes,
can hear you,
sir.
Tom.
Yes.
We got you.
Okay, good. All right.
We're back, baby.
Okay. Just in the nick of
Let me
time.
get recording.
Recording in progress.
All right. So we have the technology issues sorted out. We'll try the board of directors comments again. Kelly.
No, I'll just say Happy New Year to everybody, and the BOCC is planning to talk quite a bit about housing on our retreat in early February, and I look forward to that discussion.
Love that.
Thank you, Kelly. Francie?
I would say likewise. Happy New Year. I'm just getting over my very first bout of COVID. After 3 years, I finally got struck down. But I'm doing fine, and I actually went out today for the first time in a week. It was amazing.
Admit.
So all's good, and Happy New Year to all of you and to everybody in APCHA who might be listening.
Thanks, Francie.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hope you're feeling better.
Thank you.
Skippy.
Oh, to keep Groundhog Day going, Happy New Year's to everyone. Conditions on the mountain have been awesome, so I hope people are taking advantage of that. Kelly, that's great news. Happy to hear it. If we can be supportive in any way, let us know. And Other than that, we have a campaign season coming up yet again, and looking forward to a robust, caring, issue-oriented debate with the best interest of Aspen in mind.
Very nice.
Thanks, Skippy. Rachel?
Thank you. I really have no comments this evening.
Great, and nothing from me. So we will move to Executive Director updates. Matthew.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Matthew Gillen, the Executive Director of APCHA. I have a few things I'd like to go over. First of all, we do have a couple positions we are hiring for at APCHA, including the compliance officer, which we're excited about. So if you know any good candidates, please let us know. We did sell 16 AJACs last week, so after a year of work, that is done. So we're very pleased with that, and we look forward to that becoming an important addition to the APCHA inventory. And then I just had one thing for the county colleagues, harkening back to the emergency grant program from we discussed back last year. Was just wondering if the county would be willing to chip in half the amount of money for that. And I know we don't need an answer on that right now, but I just wanted to put that tickler out there to test the water and see. We don't have a formal request yet because we don't know what that's going to look like, but city asked me to convey that to the county. So we don't need an answer right now, but Kelly and Francie, if you could just think about that, and I'm happy to chat later if you need to. And then from the meeting last meeting, you guys asked me to check on the hearing officer Mick Ireland's status. So I have an update on that. So regarding APCHA hearing officer Mick Ireland's compliance with applicable regulations pertaining to his use of a home office to run his business, we can find no valid grounds for concern. Mr. Ireland has fulfilled the relevant APCHA work requirements, does not violate his deed restriction, is credentialed by the City of Aspen to conduct business in his home, does not violate city ordinances, and has permission, as do many other residents from his HOA, to conduct business at home. And I'm just going to give you a little bit more detail on each of those points. Mr. Ireland is fully in compliance with APCHA. He fulfills all the requirements for a self-employed person to work from home in APCHA housing. APCHA allows individuals to have home occupancy business as long as it is allowed by the city and or the county. Mr. Ireland has provided his City of Aspen business license and fulfills the APCHA work requirements per year. Regarding his deed restriction, Mr. Ireland's business activities are fully consistent with the deed restriction of his property, which forbids business activity unless otherwise allowed by zoning ordinance. The deed restriction effectively removes the deed restriction from the question of operating a business. Mr. Ireland appears to be compliant with all relevant city requirements, having a business license and a sales tax license issued by the City of Aspen. Further, his home office is not forbidden by Home Occupation Ordinance, which is section 26.575.090, home occupations. It is not one of the excluded businesses under that restriction, which is stuff like restaurant use, health or medical clinic, mortuary, nursing home, veterinarian's clinic, pharmacy, the sale, production, and cultivation and testing of marijuana or marijuana products.
Are you sure?
Et cetera, et cetera. Mr. Ireland has permission from his HOA to run his home business. Home businesses in compliance with city zoning and ordinances are a common practice at the Common Ground development. APCHA has not received any indication from the Common Ground HOA that his home business is contrary to the HOA rules, nor would APCHA have means or standing to intervene in a dispute between HOA and owner. Mr. Ireland is fully compliant with APCHA rules, his deed restriction, city business practices, and HOA compliance as normally implied by APCHA. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. And would just let the record reflect that Allison has joined us, Allison Baktesh.
In time for director's comments?
Yeah, did you have any comments? Okay.
No, Happy New Year. Everyone say Happy New Year.
And so Cindy, do we have any available rental or sale units coming up?
There are no sales units this week. Possibly next week we'll be getting a couple. With regards to rentals, do you know if we've two of them? So again, with regards to rentals, please go on our website, APCHA.org. And if you sign up for notifications, you will get an email that will tell you that there's what rental unit is available, what the maximum household income is for that, and what the rental rate is. So I highly recommend that if you're interested in our program for rentals or ownership, that you again get on our website and you sign up for notifications.
Very good, thank you. Okay, we will move to the consent calendar. Just one item on there today is the minutes of the December 14th special meeting. Any additions, changes, discussion?
I would make a motion to approve the minutes of December 14th, 2022. I would make a motion to approve the minutes of December 14th, 2022 special meeting.
Thank you, Rachel.
Second.
Second from Kelly. And it's a roll call vote.
Okay. Carson,
Yes.
Rachel,
Yes.
Allison,
Yes.
and Kelly.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, motion passes, and we will move to discussion on transparency on compliance cases.
So I'll take this one. So if you see in the packet, we're trying to come up with something to put up on the website which would show what we're working at, what we're working on, and the status of that, while also protecting the anonymity of the citizens. And we also want to be very clear that we're not trying to use this as any kind of naming or shaming product. This is very separate from compliance itself. It's merely to monitor and show the work we're doing. So we think we can pull it out pretty easily from our current products, which we use to track it. So we would have something on the website which shows the type of violation, and I put in the memo, not residing in unit or not working full-time in Pitkin County, and then we'll say the status of the case received, under investigation or completed, and then the resolution. So it'd be very simple. Very simple way to track what we're working on, and we'd update that probably monthly or maybe weekly so everybody can see what we're doing. And we think that has a pretty good balance between showing what we're working on and what the result was, but also not letting it be used for any kind of other purpose, as a way to, shame people, because that's, until proven, we don't want to assume any kind of guilt on the citizen, but also showing how the work we're doing. I don't think we're really able to do a way to give people updates on particular cases publicly. So if we currently have, we will tell people the status of a particular case if we know who they are, and we'll go back on them. But that isn't a public discussion, that's more of an email discussion we have. So if you have a complaint, we'll update you and we'll let you know the result, which is obviously harder if it's anonymous. We can't do it. So I hope that if you have any questions, we're happy to answer them, but that's kind of where we'd like to go.
So so the shaming. So naming and shaming. So who are we afraid of shaming?
I'd prefer if we are doing the notice of violations and the investigations, we don't have that public while it's in process.
Right.
Because, and this would be, you get the request for investigation, we put it up and say, this is what we're looking at, but I don't want to have any identifiable information in there at this juncture.
Because this is kind of the same thing we got into, 3 or 4 years ago with the previous executive director. And I will just say that I think if you're violating the rules of the program, I think you should be ashamed.
Yeah.
You're stealing housing from rule followers, and I hope you feel shame.
Yeah.
And so, to me, I don't think being afraid of shaming somebody who's breaking the rules is a reason for us to not have transparency. And I understand needing to protect while there's an investigation, fair enough, but I don't think, personally, I would not want to see just an aggregated, here are the types of cases. I would want to have it be where if I call and say, what's the status of this case, I would like the status of that case to be listed. Again, we could anonymize it through a random number, or we could just put the street name. We don't have to put identifying details. We don't have to put an address on there. But to me, it's my belief that if we don't put the transparency out there, it looks as if there is something to hide, where I don't think that is the case at all. And I will tell you personally, I have a real problem with us having any concern about shaming someone who's breaking the rules. As I said, they should be ashamed.
Just to say, I think that the concern around shaming, and I'm sure you agree with this, is a recognition that the majority of complaints that come forward
Sure.
end up being baseless. And so not ascribing shame before guilt is proven.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, we saw an attempt at shaming at our last public meeting.
Exactly.
And trying to use APCHA in that sense.
Yeah.
So I certainly don't want to see that. I can see more detail being added that is, for one thing I thought, with looking at this, was to say the date the complaint was received. And so that then you can know it's received, it's under investigation, and completed should be, the resolution status, which you're following with. I think whatever web page or however this is used should also then have the number to call for complaints if you feel there is a violation that you're aware of, and a request to include your name if you want feedback as to the resolution of it. If it's an anonymous complaint, we're not going to be able to deal with it. The one thing that strikes me is, as you were saying, a letter could be assigned or a random code number or something like that, so that there'd be a way to track the case that you called in on, or others to look at. How was I thinking about it? I just think that it is really important to make sure that there's not a liability issue of someone getting information out. Oh, they're investigating you, but it was found to be harmless.
Right.
And so liability is one thing, but the other side of it that is coming back to me now is, how do we let people know if we're getting complaint every month anonymously about the exact same situation? How do we say, case number BB has been also referenced 5 other times and has been investigated, and it is not, there's no issue. So finding a way to communicate on these repeat question marks, because people aren't getting the information they want because they won't leave their name. And yet we still get others calling in again and again about the same one who's been found and been cleared. And I just know myself, I would feel really awkward about this if, you know, I was getting a call from the housing office every 2 months because someone's still asking, am I in compliance or not? And at what level I want to make sure people cannot use APCHA for harassment on concerns. I know we all share that, but that's the only thing, is that how do we do it in such a way that people know what this was received, and that way you can have a better sense of when it's closed. So that's all.
One thought, and I think this is what you're getting at, it might not
Yeah.
be, but you know, a system similar to like a voter ID number, right? Where like you know that this voter ID number has voted, but you have no idea who that person is or where they are. So that if that person's, you know, coming back, right, like it's tied to like a property
Kind
or
of.
something.
You can
Something
find out
like
where
that.
someone lives from their voter ID number.
Well, because there's additional
Yeah,
lines of
I know.
information. But I just mean like some unique but anonymized character that, so if it's the same
Yeah.
person, you don't know that person is, but you have the same, is that what you
Well,
mean?
I just am thinking that if there's this, you know, maybe we deal with it as it comes up more clearly, but,
Well, and I think what he's suggesting would address your question is if somebody called to make another complaint, you could say, this has already been investigated, it's on the website under complaint number BB or whatever, and here you
Yeah,
go.
yeah,
And
I
then
see
you
what
could
you're
make a
saying.
note and say, you know, received additional follow-up complaint January 4th, it was already investigated.
yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that.
And
So-
certainly, I'm not suggesting it needs to be real time, and we'll go to Tom and then Kelly real quick, but not suggesting it needs to be real time as we're investigating it, but I do think that as we investigate these cases, and we come to a conclusion, that's when we should be putting the information, certainly on the website. I mean, and you know, I mean, I just don't see any reason why we couldn't do that. I mean,
The actual name of the person?
no,
No.
not the name of the
Okay.
person and not the specific address, right? But
The rationale.
just
Yeah.
the rationale. You could put just the street name and the complaint date. You could give it a random number. It doesn't really matter. But just as so long as that, if somebody did complain, there would be an easy way to reference them and say, look, this is publicly available data to show this is the status. We've investigated this. You know, and for the people that say, well, I turned them in and nothing ever came of it. No, here are the details. It is publicly available. I mean,
Yeah.
and for me, I think that is more valuable than just a sort of summary report of here are the types of cases, because then people could reference it. And anyway,
Yeah.
Tom, we'll come to you, and then Kelly put her hand down. I don't know if she saw his comments, but
Okay, so, I hate to be able to throw a wet blanket on this, but there's an issue here that we have to be aware of, and that is quorum.
So
I
there could
can
be a
find-
Colorado open
I-
request
I-
for all our.
Colorado Open Records Act. So I can find no exemption from the requirements for disclosure of public records that would allow us to keep the names and addresses of people under investigation confidential if it's requested based upon the information that would be made public in accordance with this policy. There is an exemption in the statute for criminal justice records, as far as matters under investigation is concerned, not when they're over with, but criminal matters that are under investigation, there's a specific exemption for public disclosure, but there is no similar exemption for matters that would be, or like this, that would be considered civil enforcement. So, if the report gets, you don't have to volunteer the information. What you're looking at here is fine as far as it goes, and I'm supportive of the policy completely in terms of both candor and trying not to embarrass people who just because they're under investigation. However, we may not be able to prohibit that information from being discovered by people who make a CORA request. I just can't find the exemption that I wish was in there. You know, they passed a statute recently that requires the courts to keep information regarding evictions that are filed. When an eviction is filed, prior to the resolution of the eviction action, there's now an exemption for the records in those cases. And pretty obviously, there's a parallel with what we're looking at here, right? Evictions are, throwing somebody out of their house. This is what we're looking at is sort of the same thing. But there is no exemption in the Open Records Act for this, and that statute is not interpreted liberally for, well, let me put it the other way around. The statute is many times been cited by the courts as creating a presumption that public records are available to the public. And it's very hard to keep things, protect public records from disclosure. So I don't know how to resolve that dilemma. I mean, obviously one thing you can do is to make it clear in any information that's made public that the fact that someone is under investigation should not be understood as meaning that they are in fact in violation until the investigation is concluded. But other than that, I don't know how to achieve both goals here of making the public aware of what's going on with the compliance and at the same time protecting the anonymity of those persons who are under investigation before they're charged with something.
Thank you, Tom. Allison, Rachel? Kelly, did you have anything before we?
I did. Sorry, I had to step away. That's why I put my hand down. I guess I was just wondering how these are ordinarily dealt with like nuisance complaints or other type of code violations that the city and the county manage. I don't know if we make any of those public anyway, but Tom's insight was helpful in how we think about this.
I would say that based on my experience, people don't ask about these cases until they get to the point where there's something's happening at the enforcement level in the public domain. We just don't get the requests. I can't speak to what happens in the land use area and some other things like building code. Building code would be another example. But people just generally aren't that interested, right? We don't get those requests, but if something shows up in a document that we produce, I don't think it's far-fetched to think somebody's going to look at that and say, "Oh, I want to know who that is."
Yeah. That's true. Makes a good story.
Allison?
I think monthly is a good pace, and that might help with the report being a lot of closed cases, not ongoing cases. I'm hearing what you're saying, Tom, that someone might be able to request the name of the person who had been investigated. I guess I just don't understand what the problem is if you see that someone, suspected Allison and she was found clear, then like all of a sudden is Allison embarrassed by that? So I guess especially the resolved cases, I think the cases that are resolved by eviction or, a forced sale, that's public. The address goes on the website eventually anyway. So those type of privacy things aren't my concern as much. I would like to see, and maybe this is already the case, basically that all of these complaints go through the same form. So whether you want to be anonymous when you do it or not, there's a line that's not required for you to say your name, but at the end of submitting that form, you get a receipt. Thank you. This is compliance case number 00425. And then that's what you're able, like Carson's idea, when you see the report come through within the next month or whatever, or the spreadsheet that the Google Doc that we have linked out from our site, you go look at your receipt number 4222. Oh, it's still under investigation. The biggest transparency I think that this particular set of standards could help APCHA with is dispelling the narrative that APCHA picks and chooses who their favorites are. And yes, they're in violation, but we don't do it when we like them. We actually kick people out who aren't. You know, like, I think what this shows is a complaint happened and the work was done to look into it and results happened. And I think that monthly report is the benefit and the community transparency. The second one is there is a narrative that everyone in APCHA is cheating, that we all work remotely, we all have trust funds, none of us care about Aspen, and we're somehow ruining the town, right? So I think the biggest thing is that amount of looked into it, not in violation, looked into it, not in violation. If that's the data, that data should be proudly sprinkled 12 times a year on our website and in our meetings or whatever it is. So I'm actually not, the privacy thing, and I might be reacting to what we've heard, the last couple complaints, is that I made a complaint and the person wasn't cheating. When it flips to the other way around, I like, this person keeps cheating and they get away with it, or maybe I'll be empathetic in a different way, and I'm just seeing it in a pretty narrow lens right now. But the point is, APCHA wants to show that we are looking into the complaints and we are taking care of it, right? So I think that that's what this report would do. The one thing, I thought of the same thing, Rachel, what I wrote down was, it's Aspen, right? So like, a neighbor tells you that your joint upstairs neighbor has 10 people living with them, and that spreads around your complex. So everyone who's heard that rumor puts in that same complaint. You don't know that complaint 00425 was your neighbor complaining about the same person you just complained about. I don't know how you triangulate that. It is extra work for APCHA staff if there's just a rumor going around that someone's cheating and they're not, and everyone keeps being like, well, I heard they made a lot of money. I heard, but like, I don't know how you deal with that. I mean, you already are, right? I'm sure you're getting more than one complaint based on hearsay on different people. That's when an address or a street could help, a property name, something like that, but maybe that's more of an annual report. Benedict Commons had 10 complaints. One was found valid or something, like by the end of the year, so you kind of know, like, my neighbors are probably all pretty much staying in line. I don't know how else to do the multiple.
I would just suggest that if, the first complaint comes forward and there's the BB identifier for that one, whether you're second or 10th, when you go in, you don't know who it is, but staff knows it's the same person. It's got a BB, and so when you go to track it, you would see the other ones in there as well, so you'd know there was more than one.
Perhaps I have no idea. I guess my intention is not to add work, meticulous work like this. So like, what if one person was complaining that they don't work enough hours? The second person was complaining that they are violating their deed restriction on pets. The third person was complaining that they have too many people in the house. Maybe one of those is valid. So you can't just look at an address and like, oh, you're complaining about someone who we've already checked out. No, they're clear. No, they're clear. At some point, they might actually cheat, and then.
Yeah. No, I mean, the question is just, does the identifier move with the person or the property? And I think probably the person. But it would just be tagged, right? So it should be the same report, same process, same information. The only difference is it sort of automatically compiles them in sort of an archive form.
Yeah. I guess it's just as long as like the next year we don't say, oh no, they hit their 1,500. We've investigated this address before, or this person before, but actually they did take a year off. Like,
right.
We should investigate
Yeah.
again.
Oh, yeah.
So you'd have to figure out at what point to reinvestigate it,
Yeah.
No, I think maybe it's, you just have to deal with
I think
this.
staff's already doing that.
Yeah,
Exactly, that's
every
what-
time
yeah.
it comes up, they do.
So I think you get a receipt. I think you put something in through Home Track, you get a receipt number, and then you can follow your complaint number.
And what Bethany just said is that I guess they do get a number.
Great.
Great.
So it's, and then it would be, if there's some way that we can post it someplace, either on Home Tracker and we'll look into this, or on our website, then it's up to that person to go on a monthly basis or whatever to see what number they got, if it's been satisfied.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like tracking a shipment.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
there's the 3 prongs was set out for delivery plan.
Yeah, I appreciate what you're saying. I think there's a lot to that in a lot of ways. I think it is worth noting that Cora runs both ways. So the complainants may well be Cora'd by the person being investigated to say who filed the complaint against me. And, you know, that gets a little funny when it's an anonymous complaint, because you start saying, well, was it this neighbor who I don't like anymore? Or is it this neighbor who's trying to get me out of the unit because they want their friends to move in this unit? You know, you have to be really careful about neighborhood relations. And, you know, I was thinking street names. Juan Street, how many units are on Juan Street?
6.
You know, it starts to get pretty identifiable when you use street names as to who lives there. There's a lot of fairly small streets with very few units. And so I think you have to think twice about that. I don't think we could move to a place where we're saying no anonymous complaints, but there is something that's a little funny about an anonymous complaint to me, you know, and it does, I'd say that 99.0% are probably very, very legitimate, and I just don't want to upset my neighbors and things like that. But then you have a 1% that's going to really just be about neighborhood beefs and neighborhood grudges. And I've been called about them before, you know, repeatedly, you know, in different complexes. And I can't believe they cut down the bushes I just planted. And I can't believe they do this. And, you know, and these are things that APCHA really doesn't get involved in. And so if anything, we need to make it very clear that we don't get involved in HOA issues on this complaint form or wherever they type it, email it, call it in, is that we do not enforce HOA rules. And the other last thing I saw that might be under number 2 or 3, I'm not sure which, would be if there were fines assessed. You know, and
that would be under resolution status. We could put the fine if there's.
Yeah, no, I think that's a valid piece of information people would like to know as well, that, you know, we're using the fine schedule. But this, again, starts to be a little, I guess you could core request, you know, people's parking violations or this or that to find out, oh, they were fined because, you know, and we saw this schedule. There's some pretty minor fines in there for $50 of not upping your HOA dues on time or whatever the small fine schedule was. So I have a problem of trying to make, I don't want to make us trying to criminalize people or make them bad when it was more of one of the minor slip-ups that I didn't do this, and I paid a $50 fine because of it. It's just like overtime parking. You over-park too long in Aspen, now it's a $50 fine some places. So that's the only thing I would say is I think we have to remember we're still dealing with families and people and real life situations.
Excuse me.
Yeah, the only other thought I have for this is around setting expectations, right? It's like the spinning wheel on the computer. We all hate it, but actually it like greatly reduced stress of computer users. So I'm wondering, what is the average time from like the notice of violation to resolution?
I would not want to say as an average time because
Okay.
they are so different. You know, there's a huge difference in spread. So I reject the premise of your question.
No, it's okay. I mean, what I'm getting at is it would be great to, like, if I'm random citizen B and I
I
go
know
to the
exactly
site,
what you mean.
it
but
says something like, you know, maybe it doesn't have to claim the average time, but it's like, investigations take time. Here's the reasons why. It's 2 sentences. And if we think that this one might be more than 3 months, we'll put a note of that so you're not waiting for 3 years
'cause,
wondering what's
some
going
of them
on.
have gone for years. Some
Sure.
of them are wrapped up, instantly. So that it's a very reasonable question, but I don't think we can really answer it in a coherent way. But we can try and think about that a little bit.
I would love to try to find some realistic benchmark whereby if we think it might be longer, we at least let people know that, you know, so that they're not thinking something weird's going on.
Yeah, I see that.
I have
Well,
a
great.
clarification from Bethany or Cindy. So, anyone who's being investigated, obviously, if you need extra paperwork or something, they would be told that they're being investigated, and we want to see. We heard you bought another property in the exclusionary zone. Can you show us this and this? But if it's something where someone says, "Oh, I know they make this much money," but that person complaining didn't know that on that deed restriction of that cat, you know, that was a cat 3, not cat 2. You can just look at it and tell through paperwork that they're not doing the violation. Does every single person who's had a complaint against them get notified by APCHA?
No,
Thank you, Bethany.
no, they don't, because
Okay.
if it's, as you said, if it's, you know, it's on paper, it doesn't make sense, then no, we wouldn't reach out to them. We can also do some digging internally, so not every person would find out that they have been being investigated. Certainly, if we've received the same complaint 4 weeks later, I wouldn't reach out to them again if it's the same thing that we've already looked at too. So
Right.
it wouldn't be a repetitive reach out. So
Well, great. I think we have enough.
Yeah, so I mean, I think, so I've got monthly.
Yep.
Under investigation is a fine status if we're investigating it. Some sort of a random case identifier. You know, and then I think, to Tom's point, I mean, just because something is Cora-able, I mean, we don't have to volunteer it, but if people pull it off, I mean, you know, that's.
I mean, they
have
could
the
do
right
it.
to
Already
do
the case
that.
now.
They have a
Yeah.
right to do that, and you know, and with the anonymous complaints, I mean, I agree with you, but I think that you know, that's one of those things where
Yep.
there's no solution. It's a
No
trade-off,
solution.
and the trade-off of not accepting anonymous complaints would be worse.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm
So-
just saying that, but it's, I hate to see us ever used just to
Yeah.
settle squabbles in neighborhoods, and people are willing to do that. You know, they're willing to do it with other departments of the city as well. Believe you me, they get a few calls here and there.
Indeed. Thank you. I think that this is a,
Quick clarification.
Kelly?
Yeah, does that anonymous complaint form advise somebody that their identity might be revealed in the case of a Cora?
It can be.
It
if
can't
it's
be.
anonymous, we have no way of tracking them. There is absolutely no
Okay.
way to turn it over. I mean, it comes in as a sheet that just says the timestamp that it came in and what the complaint was, but we have no other identifier. We don't keep a web IP address or anything like that. There is no way to figure it out.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I think
That's,
this is a good result.
Great. Thanks.
thank you.
Okay, we will now move. Okay, so a couple of things here. We have we've got an executive session here on the agenda, and then we've got, if time allows, review and discussion on biennial affidavit for owners, continuing of rightsizing pilot program. So I guess there's two thoughts here. One, we could just do the executive session, and then, as the agenda says, if time allows, we can come back and tackle these last two items. I guess just trying to get a feel from a timing standpoint, if it's going to run, depending on how long the executive session is going to run. I mean, we've got the executive session on here from 5 to 6:30. I'm thinking it may make sense for us just to table these last two items and push them to our next agenda.
Do we think it'll take?
It could.
It depends how many questions you guys have.
So it'll take a
And
while.
this way, the press doesn't have to stay and GrassRoots doesn't have to stay.
Let me ask this a different question. How long do you think the review and discussion of biannual affidavit for owners will take? And could we knock that out before the executive session?
Well,
I'm running that. I can give you an overview in 5 minutes, but again, it's how many questions you all have or the discussion that takes place. So one could hope 10 to 15 minutes, but it
Yeah.
could take much longer.
Well, the only thing I'm thinking is that if there's information Bethany wanted to give us and we can think about it before we come back to the next meeting,
Okay.
that would at least be presented,
So
you know.
Bethany, we'll do that. We'll set a target here of 10 minutes to just run through the review and discussion on biennial affidavit, and then as Rachel said, if we, have deep
We'll hold our
discussion or
questions.
more questions, we can come back to those.
Yeah. Well,
Thoughts on
save
that?
your questions for next meeting,
It's
that's
on
all I'm
me.
saying. Okay.
Okay. I'm happy to do that. Okay, so as you saw, there wasn't really much in the memo in the packet, but the biennial affidavit is set to be, to go out in 2023. It's that time, again. We had 100% compliance in 2021, which was, I think, the first time ever. It did take us having to start a court case for one of the units, but we finally got that one to come into compliance. The reason that this is on the agenda is because we are going to be asking the same questions that we asked in 2021, which is who's in the unit, do you have tenants, do you have dependents, are you working full-time, confirmation of ownership of only one property in the ownership exclusion zone. The question that we're really here asking the board for what they would like to do, is there an appetite for requiring whether it's a end of the year tax document to be uploaded, a W-2 or a 1099 if you're self-employed, the most recent pay stub. Is there an appetite for us to be requesting those types of documentation from our owners? I see reduced compliance with the affidavit because it's an extra step as a deterrent. It's also a snapshot in time. So that employment is valid for basically that day that they've provided it to us, because they could change jobs the next day. If we're looking for end of the year tax documentation like a W-2, someone could have been working, let's say, for Aspen Skiing Company, but in February got a new job and it's now April and they're filling out their biennial affidavit. So if we were to request kind of that extra documentation and not just have it be a self affirmation that they are in compliance with our rules, it would just be, an added step, something different than we've done in the past, and one that we would like direction from the board on how they would like us to proceed, whether we go status quo, how we've always done it, which is that affidavit that they sign that they're answering truthfully, or if we're looking for backup documentation.
Okay.
Bethany, if this isn't our next packet, could you also throw in the questionnaire from 2021 just for us to look that over?
Sure.
Thanks.
I would have a question for Tom Smith to answer
Yeah.
when we get to the next meeting, is that if we require a pay stub or tax form to go in someone's file, will they be corroborable? And can somebody request, I'd like the information on who's living there? Why would it be protected? And would we have a lot of redaction going on in Cindy's department, making sure there's no social security numbers exposed or bank account numbers where the electronic deposit goes to, or how much is what somebody makes in a year really, should it be public information because they live in our housing program? So I would really ask those, because I don't think we'd have an ability to keep it secret once we've gotten it on file.
Well, we have this stuff on file already.
Well, I don't know, that's why I'm asking Tom
Yeah.
Smith.
Tom?
I can answer that quickly. There is an exception in the statute for personal financial information.
Okay, so we can ask
So for the
that.
same reason that we don't disclose social security numbers, we don't disclose personal financial information. Now, if it becomes the subject of enforcement action, it may be necessary to disclose it in that context, depending upon what's at issue and that sort of thing. But we are able to protect people from the disclosure of their personal financial information, and we honor that.
Thank you.
I think that's a whole.
Just
big
to
discussion.
add one more piece, the reason we didn't suggest an employment verification form is that could put undue pressure on the employers in this situation of filling out, we have 1,500 owners or so. And some units have 2 owners, so that would go higher of filling out forms for them as well. So there's a reason we went with paste every tax document.
Excuse me.
I guess my only question for next time, it sounds like there's more that I need to be filled in on, but the tax document seems to make sense to me. Everyone kind of has their most recent on hand. Pay stub, at least for me personally, every time I have to do that is a pain in the butt because I don't get them and I have multiple employers and then I got to go ask people, and it doesn't really prove anything other than I've been paid recently, whereas a tax document does. So I guess the question I'll have is, like, are there situations that we're aware of where getting that tax document is more complicated or burdensome or challenging than I am aware of?
Yeah. Well, and I want to know what we really think the point is.
Well,
I mean, is that to, is it to start documenting what type of employment people have or who they're working with? But it would be doable when you have all that information. And you could ask I don't want their financial information, but I am querying their employers. Or I'm querying who they were employed by last year, and you have it in your files. You know, so I think there's just a little thing there. I mean, we have to ensure the integrity of the program, but we also have to not act like the users of our program are all out there doing something wrong.
Right.
And I don't want to go that far.
Yeah.
we don't have anybody that lies to APCHA, do we?
Oh, anywhere, to the banks? They ever lie to the banks? They'd lie to get elected to Congress?
Right. Bethany, this is an
It's almost
excellent
a job
question.
requirement.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing it forward, and we will have this on a future agenda.
Very
Cool.
good.
And with that, we will table the continuation of Rightsizing pilot program to our next meeting, and I would take a motion to move into executive session.
I would make a motion to move into executive session for a conference with the APCHA attorney for the purpose of receiving legal advice under Colorado Revised Statute, Section 24-6-4024B, regarding the 1994 settlement agreement in Centennial Aspen 2 Limited Partnership, United States District Court Civil Action Number 92B2570.
Rachel, could you invite me in as well?
That is, I believe, Diane Foster's voice from the city. Let's see if we, I'd like to ask the chair, is that okay?
Yeah.
I think, okay. And with the motion to go into executive session would be the inclusion of Diane Foster, Assistant City Manager, for the discussion.
And Kelly,
Got a motion and a second from Kelly.
ready for
Do you
roll
have a
call?
question? Oh, okay.
No. Okay. Carson,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Rachel,
Yes.
Allison.
Yes.
So we'll take
Okay,
a couple
so-
of minutes so
yeah, we'll-
GrassRoots can wrap
We'll
up.
take a 5-minute break here to clear the room, and we'll resume here in 5 minutes, 5:10.
Do you want to?
Recording stopped.